welcome, welcome, welcome to the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council's 2015 Summit. I'm really happy to be here and welcome you all. My name is Anastasia O'Rourke and I'm the board chair of the SPLC currently. And I'm also working with Industrial Economics, which is an environmental consulting firm. I've helped actually start the SPLC a few years ago, so it's very exciting to me to see this scrappy startup turn into such an amazing group and attracting such a high caliber crowd today. So very excited to see you here. I have high expectations for this event. One of the really wonderful things about this group, I think you'll all experience over the next 2 days, is a really diverse set of perspectives that we all bring to this topic of sustainable purchasing, which is really multidimensional. And so we're all here in the room together. What I'd like to do now, to just take a 2-minute, talk to your neighbor next to you. Take 2 minutes, please, and introduce yourself and ask each other, why are you here? Very existential question for the morning. Really fun to hear all the conversations going on, and I think it's a sign of good conversations to come. So there's a number of things I wanted to note for you as we begin the day. Our event planners have been working closely with the venue and the catering staff to make responsible purchasing decisions. As you can imagine, we need to walk the talk here, and typical SPLC style, Sam and others did write a standard for a sustainable event and put it into practice. So part of that is incumbent on you guys also to for your own practices. So recycling and compost will be sorted in the back of the house, so it's okay to just leave those items together on the bus trays. And importantly, we're also going to measure and report our waste that we all collectively generate here, and these will be our diversion rates will be reported back at the end of each day, so we'll see how we do at the end of today. I want to give a huge thank you to all of our sponsors, especially our title sponsor, FedEx, and our presenting sponsor, Office Depot. Several of the sponsors have set up exhibit booths, and I'm sure you walked through them this morning. So be sure to visit them during the breaks and throughout the conference. Office Depot has actually set up a model green office in the pierside room. If you haven't seen that yet, go and check it out. And if you drop your card into the drawing, you may be eligible to win a $1,000 gift card to help you replicate that green office in your own workplace. So that drawing is going to take place during the closing ceremony plenary tomorrow, and the winner must be present to receive the prize. So for all of you on social media, please use the tag hashtag SPLC15 when tweeting about today's program. And with that, it is now my pleasure to introduce Pat Hopper, who is the Director of Sourcing for FedEx Services. FedEx, as I think many of you know, is a founding member of the council, and FedEx sourcing staff have really contributed significant time and energy to many of the council committees and activities since 2013. So we're really pleased to have FedEx as the title sponsor of the 2015 Summit. And Pat, welcome to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia, and thanks to SPLC. It's our honor at FedEx to be the title sponsor of the 2015 Summit. Welcome to Seattle. Hopefully everybody's loving the venue. I was fortunate enough to come out a weekend early and bring my wife, so we've really enjoyed this venue, and never having been to Seattle, have really taken advantage of all the opportunities here. So I just want to spend a couple minutes telling you a little bit about what we've done with the SPLC and how we try to incorporate some of those principles into our practices from a sourcing perspective. Some of you may not know about FedEx. We're currently in over 220 countries. We've got about 325,000 employees. We have over 650 airplanes and over 100,000 vehicles, about 5,000 facilities in the United States. We've recently announced an acquisition over in Europe called TNT, I'm sure you guys are familiar with. And revenue-wise, we're about $46 billion, although it constantly changes. We've had two recent acquisitions, Genco and Bongo as well this calendar year. So we continue to grow and are always trying to be responsible and resourceful as we deliver your packages and appreciate all the volume that you give us. Sustainability at FedEx has been around for a long time, and one of the neat things for us with aligning around the SPLC from a founding perspective is how we could incorporate or take advantage of what this organization's putting together and incorporate into our practices at FedEx. Our brand team has had an EarthSmart program for a long time. In fact, Anastasia, I think, assisted in a consultancy role years ago with our corporate office in developing that program. It spans a lot of platforms for us. It spans our airline, it spans our packaging, it spans our vehicles, and you'll see branding around the EarthSmart logo. You'll see that out at our booth that Anastasia referenced as well today and tomorrow. We've also leveraged the Center for Advanced Purchasing Studies, and see John's here from Arizona State. That's an organization that we highly recommend from a research perspective. It's Arizona State Institute of Supply Management coming together to develop research that companies like FedEx and others can leverage to figure out what best practices to apply. In our journey from a sourcing perspective and how we've incorporated sustainability, honestly assessing ourselves, I'd say we're in the advanced category. We've been at this for a while. We've recently reorganized into a shared services model where we've put a dedicated team focused on driving sustainable practices into the supply chain. And the guidance that this organization developed last year was crucial for us to be able to really cement how we're going about this with our suppliers. As I mentioned, in our contracts, we're putting terms and conditions into our agreements. We start on the front end with asking the right questions to the supply base, driving that in from a terms and conditions perspective, and then measuring that, of course, through reporting and compliance and supplier evaluation processes. So, you know, for us, it's more of a holistic approach that we've taken with sustainability. Participated in the roundtable yesterday on supplier diversity, and coincidentally, we do have both diversity and sustainability in the same organization. We do think there's some synergies there. The difference in our view is diversity is a little more mature in the marketplace than sustainability is at this point, and we're really eager to see some of the standards that hopefully the measurement team here will help develop over the next year that we can then move forward in the maturation model, if you will, and how we can incorporate this into our processes at FedEx. And finally, just a plug for our Global Citizenship Report. We've got some executive summaries at our booth out here for you. Like I said, FedEx has been at this for a while in sustainability. It's a lot broader than just sourcing. This is our 7th annual Global Citizenship Report, and in this it talks about our people, you know, our operations, the environment, what we're doing in all realms as it relates to our sustainable efforts. So would encourage you to pick this up and ask questions. We've got a lot of folks from FedEx here at the conference. We've got someone from our sales team, someone from our corporate sustainability office, as well as several folks from our sourcing team. So again, FedEx is happy to be here and real proud to be the title sponsor of this year's summit. And with that, I'll introduce Jason Pearson, the Executive Director of SPLC. Jason.
Thank you, Pat, and welcome everyone to the summit. This is a very exciting day for us, a day of both relief and anxiety, relief at all the work that is done, and also anxiety about whether we will deliver everything that we hope to you today. So I will encourage you, and there should be slides coming up in a moment. Maybe I have to hit them. I will encourage you today and tomorrow to be getting in touch with us if there's anything that we can do to make this summit more valuable to you. There's going to be a theme in my comments about the importance of the very different stakeholders that we have managed to bring together in this room, that we hope to bring together over the coming years. And what's most important to us is to understand how each of you, from your very different perspectives, are thinking about sustainable purchasing and how we can convene a conversation that brings you together constructively to advance the goals that we've laid out. The reason that I'm excited to be here, the reason that I'm excited to be on this stage and excited to be talking about sustainable purchasing, which is a topic that I knew nothing about 4 years ago, is because of my commitment and my belief in the power of our markets. That is the commercial activity that we as a species have specialized ourselves in. The power of that market activity, of that commercial activity, to do tremendous good for us and for the planet if we design that commercial activity well. And in some cases, we've done a great job of that, and we do a really good job of that. And in some cases, we don't, and we find that maybe we could redesign some of the things that we've done, the ways that we do our business, the way that we construct our industrial activity, in order to make a better future for our children, a better future for our grandchildren, and a better planet overall. And so I'm excited because I think that today, because of what's happening today in the market, because of the level of maturity that we've achieved as a business culture, as a culture of nonprofit organizations working together, as a culture of suppliers and purchasers, as a government culture, we've achieved a level of maturity that we can recognize the opportunity of sustainable purchasing to truly advance the kind of future that we want to see. And that's what, for those of you who haven't heard about our logo and why it looks the way it does, that's what that logo means, that working together across boundaries of conversation boundaries that might have prevented conversation previously, that working together across government, business, NGO, academic communities, we can build a program of activity and a way of thinking about the economic signal that purchasers send into the marketplace that could be truly transformative for the way that our economy works, the way that our commercial activity works, and could achieve the promise that I think our markets have to be genuinely advancing a positive future for us. So that's the vision. That's the end of the big picture vision talk. And now I'm going to get into the details of why we are here today and what this summit represents in the arc of the growth and evolution of the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council and the evolution of the conversation that we've been trying to convene among some of you who've been in the conversation, like Anastasia, from the beginning, and some of you for whom this may be the first time that you've encountered the council. So for those who don't know the history, I'm going to very quickly walk through a couple of the key points that will give you a sense of what brings us to where we are today and where we're headed, because you all, perhaps in the annual cycle of the SPLC, this summit is the moment where we get the most significant opportunity for potential course correction in where we're headed as an organization. So I want to give you a sense of where we've been and where we are today, and how today and tomorrow are an opportunity for you to be informing where we are headed over the next 1.5 to 2 years. So we launched in July of 2013. We assembled a founders circle, many of whom are represented in this room today, a group of organizations that helped to create the council and get it off the ground. We held a founding summit of those members to really develop the work plan that has taken us to today. And we opened for membership in October of 2013 with the metaphor of a big tent. And this will be the pervasive metaphor for our conversations over the next 2 days, and is the pervasive metaphor for the work of the council. We are trying to convene a conversation within this tent and to extend this tent as far as we can to bring in as many participants in a conversation about what leadership in sustainable purchasing means and how it can be advanced in the marketplace. We then released the principles for leadership in sustainable purchasing, which we know many of you have already found valuable as a practical tool, but it is also really a compass for us of where we are headed as an organization, or where we hope many of you are headed as organizations. We had our second annual meeting, the first summit, in DC last year. Click. And then most importantly, and particularly importantly for this summit, in February, thanks to the very hard work of over 100 volunteers, many of whom are in this room, from our membership, as well as the diligent work of the SPLC staff, Board of Directors, Technical Advisory Committee, we were able to release in February the Guidance for Leadership in Sustainable Purchasing, a 200-page document. I know some of you have made your way through parts of those 200 pages. Some of you have managed to wade through the whole 200 pages. I think that every page has value for someone. Click. We have been piloting that guidance over the past few months, and we'll be continuing that pilot over the next month and a half or so. And this summit is an opportunity to take stock of how that pilot has been going and get feedback on that. And I also want to mention, thanks to the hard work of Anastasia and her colleagues at IEC, we have been able to, in March, release a draft for pilot of framework guidance for measurement and communication of sustainable public procurement benefits. This is really a UNEP project that IEC is conducting through SPLC in a way as a partnership between UNEP and SPLC. And then that brings us to today, this summit and SPLC Connect. And I would highlight the importance of the SPLC Connect event for us for a shift in thinking that we have been engaged in at the staff level, at the board level, and in conversation with stakeholders. That logo that I showed you, that burst of economic influence going out into the marketplace, really put the purchaser and the institutional purchaser at the center and suggested that institutional purchasers have tremendous power to send economic signals out into the marketplace. That is certainly true, and we believe that. But the reality is that that only happens in active, creative, and constant conversation between purchasers, suppliers, and other stakeholders. The real dynamic is probably less one of a signal being sent out as much as a cycle of feedback between purchaser and supplier as those constructive conversations occur between what purchasers are looking for and suppliers are able to provide, and the innovation that we're trying to promote, the innovation for the future, is coming out of that cycle of conversation. So by next year, I hope I'll have a better graphic for you than that unidirectional burst, a graphic that really talks about that conversation. And this summit, we've tried to make an opportunity to start that conversation with SPLC Connect and with bringing suppliers and purchasers into direct conversation to talk about immediate opportunities between individual purchasers and individual suppliers, but also to prompt that larger conversation. Click, click. And then we have proposed that this summit is also an opportunity to kick off development of a rating system for leadership in sustainable purchasing. For those of you who are not familiar with this idea, the idea is that we would be able to create a system for benchmarking and recognizing leadership in sustainable purchasing. This could be used for self-assessment by organizations to self-assess how well they are doing along a maturity model toward leadership in sustainable purchasing. And it could be used as a mechanism for recognizing genuine leadership out in the marketplace. So that's the vision that we have today. It's a vision that all of you have an opportunity to inform, particularly tomorrow, where a lot of the conversation will be focused on the proposed rating system. So let me make sure that I'm hitting all my points. So the goal is for us to work together. From our perspective, the goal is for us to work together to develop a shared program of guidance, benchmarking, and recognition for leadership in sustainable purchasing. That could take the form of a rating system, but whatever form it takes, that's the goal. The mechanism, the means by which we're seeking to do that is this big tent. And what that big tent means is two things. It means that we have the power of inclusivity and we have the challenges of inclusivity. We are trying to include a really diverse group of stakeholders, so many of whom haven't had active or may have had active but not necessarily constructive conversations in the past, and we're trying to convene a tent that includes a really diverse set of stakeholders to have constructive conversations about how to promote leadership in sustainable purchasing. That means that this is messy, it is experimental, we will trip along the way to success, and what I will ask each of you to do in your role as individual participants in this summit is to think about how you can participate in the conversation that we are trying to build in a constructive way, and when we inevitably trip, certainly point it out to us that we have tripped and that we may be headed in the wrong direction, but also help us think through how we can correct, how we can get back up and move in a more positive direction, because that is really the spirit of this organization. From the beginning, from the days of the inception of this organization as an outgrowth of the Green Products Roundtable, there's been a constant dynamic, conversational, experimental tone to the way that this organization is developed, and we want that to continue. So as we get larger, and we are getting larger, that's exciting, but our challenge is to try to maintain that tone of experimentation and a willingness to take risks, make mistakes, and get the feedback we need in order to correct when we do that. So, just in terms of, let me back up. Day one is very much about that. This first day, throughout the conference, we will be talking about, throughout the summit, we will be talking about the guidance, and the workshops are very much focused on the themes of the guidance. But the plenary sessions today are a little bit more focused, I'm just going to go back, on the big tent, on the various stakeholders here, on how we can be bringing value to each of you in your respective roles. And then day two, we'll focus a little bit more on the rating system and on what we're proposing for the rating system and your thoughts about how that might evolve. Let me see. And one thing I'll emphasize about the rating system, and I think we'll hear more about this when we hear from Chris Pike from USGBC, who will share with us the U.S. Green Building Council's experiences in developing the LEED rating system, is the role that a rating system can play in building a marketplace. And I know that Chris will touch on that in his comments. And I think that increasingly, that conversation that I referenced earlier of the purchaser-supplier dynamic and the conversation that produces the kinds of innovation we want to see, that conversation is the foundation of the marketplace. That is the conversation between purchaser and supplier. And we're increasingly understanding that the role that this council can play is in helping to build the marketplace of tomorrow. That is helping purchasers to send the signals that aim us toward the marketplace we want to see, and helping suppliers, opening the opportunity for suppliers to engage with purchasers in a way that helps them to demonstrate how they can move us toward that marketplace of tomorrow with the goods and services that they are able to provide. So the theme of building a new market and building a new market for the future through the power of purchasing and through those conversations will be a theme throughout the summit. Let's see. Now, just a few themes. If we think about that tent, this is still, from our perspective, a relatively small tent, though much bigger than it's been to date in terms of the number of people we have in this room. But it could be a much bigger tent, and we're looking out beyond the edges to the horizons of what's happening out with other stakeholders that we'd like to be thinking about. And I just want to touch on a few things, a few themes that we are watching that are informing the work that we're doing. One is the theme of labels, eco-labels, certifications, standards, and how those relate to the work of the council. And there's a lot of important and interesting work happening in that area. As some of you may be aware, some of you may have received an email today from an organization called Resolve that has been contracted by EPA to manage pilot testing of EPA's draft guidelines for environmental performance standards and eco-labels. I'm providing you the web links that went out in that email with an invitation for organizations who have an interest in participating in the pilot to express their interest in participation. I believe by June 18th is the deadline. So there will be a lot of interesting conversations happening there. We will be coordinating with Resolve because there's a significant overlap between the specific product categories that EPA has identified for piloting of these guidelines and the existing technical advisory groups that we've created. So our conversations with Resolve started well before Resolve was awarded this contract. We fully expect to be actively involved in this process and be coordinating with SPLC's activities as appropriate while respecting the independent trajectory of that pilot. Second, one of our strategic partners, ISEAL, last week announced a new project, Challenge the Label, which is focused on sustainability claims more broadly, and particularly looking at the role of labels in sustainability claims, both environmentally preferable and social responsibility labels in the marketplace. So I would encourage you to check out the website. It just went live a few days ago, I think. They just announced this project. They'll be doing the big announcement of the project next week. So this is a kind of preview for those of you who may be interested in this. So the theme of labels is quite active in the marketplace. We are staying in touch with those conversations. We expect that to be relevant for the work of the council and the rating system particularly. Second theme that has been important for us, you can see it embedded in the fourth and fifth of our principles, is the relationship between transparency in the marketplace and innovation in the marketplace. We've been certainly pushing that as a conversation within the council. We're also seeing others advancing that. Some of you may have been involved, may have been interviewed for this forthcoming report from the Lowell Center for Sustainable Production, which we have helped to support, and Responsible Purchasing Network, along with a number of other organizations, have helped to support, and we will be co-branding along with Lowell Center and RPN as the report is released, on the role that purchasers can play in advancing safer chemicals in products, with an important emphasis within the report on the role of, in that case, ingredient and toxicity transparency. That's long been a hot topic in our field. We think that there more constructive conversations are occurring, and that's what's important to us. Is we are interested in where the constructive conversations can occur. We think there are some opportunities for constructive conversations where historically it's been difficult to have those more constructive conversations on this topic. And then also on the theme of transparency, this is a recent report launched by an organization who is represented here at this meeting, Global Witness, and we will also hear a video from one of Global Witness's co-founders on the importance of transparency in purchasing from the perspective of corruption, and how important it is for there to be transparency in this case about the ownership of the companies that are providing goods and services to major purchasers, particularly to government purchasers, and the very bad things that happen if that transparency is not there, that is transparency of who owns the companies and what the actual beneficial ownership is. We'll hear from Charmian Gooch, the co-founder of Global Witness, by video about their work on this topic. As many of you know, our vision of the tent is quite broad in terms of the issues that we include, and I'll talk right at the end of my remarks in a moment about the breadth of issues that we see as part of sustainable purchasing. Certainly, corruption in supply chains is an important part. It's an important issue that we would see as relevant for sustainable purchasing. And then the last theme, and this is a loosely gathered theme, so I'll be showing you a couple of pieces that we see adding up to a strategic approach at the federal level for sustainable purchasing. And I'm going to just mention a few instances. The draft guidelines for eco-labels and certifications, eco-labels and standards, that is one piece of it. Also, the new executive order that many of you may be familiar with that replaces the previous executive order that was most relevant to sustainable and environmentally preferable purchasing. And in doing so, we think positions the federal government, and based on our conversations with our colleagues in the federal government, positions the federal government to be more strategic about what it means to do environmentally preferable and socially responsible purchasing. And I'll talk in a moment about why that is. As part of that, President Obama announced late last year the administration's commitment to host a series of forums on developing a national action plan on responsible business conduct within the framework of the OECD's guidelines for multinational enterprises on responsible business conduct. And these guidelines are quite broad. They include corruption, they include tax issues, they include environmental issues, they include social responsibility and illegality in supply chains. So it's quite a broad spectrum of issues. What President Obama has committed to is developing a US national action plan, which is what the OECD guidelines call for. Thank you. And then finally, the Office of Federal Procurement Policy, headed by Ann Rung, issued a memorandum late last year on their commitment to advancing category management as a federal strategy for procurement. And what is important about that to us is that category management is defined as an approach that maximizes realized category value to the organization, including total cost of ownership, risk, operational performance, innovation. It's about not just cost reduction, but pushing value to the organization. And that et cetera that I've highlighted at the bottom, when you start reading the details of what it means, that's where you start seeing many sustainability issues popping up as well. How do you use purchasing to advance sustainability within an organization, which positions sustainability departments within organizations as a strategic component of a strategic use of purchasing to advance organizational value and organizational strategy. I've gotten a time warning that I've gone not as quickly as I hoped, so I'm going to skip through the the main topics of that, but to highlight the conversations that we've been having with Council on Environmental Quality and the Office of Federal Procurement Policy within OMB about how category management and sustainable purchasing could be piloted together at the federal level, ideally over the next 2 years. That's what we're trying to get to happen, in a way that demonstrates that purchasing could be advancing the mission objectives of the various agencies that are focused on individual issues at the federal level, and those issues could be advanced through purchasing. So state has been focusing a lot on illegality in supply chains and human rights in supply chains. EPA, of course, has been focusing on biodiversity, environmental issues in supply chains. Commerce has been focused on corruption in supply chains. Small Business Administration has been focused on small business suppliers and how to ensure equity for smaller businesses in the marketplace. All of these issues are, from our perspective, sustainable purchasing issues. Category management as a frame provides a way for an organization to bring those together within a category and treat them strategically. So we're impressed with what's happening at the federal level, and we think there's a nice opportunity, and the timing is right for this organization to be having a conversation with the federal government about that strategic approach. So those are some of the themes that we're seeing, but what I want to come back to is the importance of you telling us what themes you are seeing and the role that you have as individuals to significantly influence how we are thinking about the next few years of growth of this organization. We really are at the cusp between the completion of an initial strategy and then the development of the next phase of the organization, and you all will have a really powerful voice in helping us to think that through. So welcome to the summit. Thank you for being here, and I would like now to introduce Daniel Girdler from Vital Metrics, our keynote sponsor, who will then introduce the keynote conversations.